The pair were equally as excited as Laura, and, unbeknownst to her, barely able to contain their joy in anticipation of the evening's activities. They awoke, strolled over to Laura's bed, and nudged her from her reverie. "Today's the day, slave. Are you ready?" asked Diana. "More than you know, ma'am," Laura replied. Martin bent down and grabbed her collar, looking her dead in the eye. "You will behave yourself for us and be properly prepared for use. Is that understood?" he asked Laura, whose smile could not be wider if she tried. "Yes, sir," Laura said. "I will be a good slut for you and ma'am. I promise." The two looked down at their property, with loving smiles on their faces. These smiles only partially hid the devious intent that lay within each of them. They were prepared to give Laura a night that she would not soon forget. Laura stretched and crawled out of her bed, kissing the feet of both Martin and Diana, and then looking up at them, wondering just what they were thinking. The agony of anticipation did not deter her good mood, but simply made it all the better, as she knew they would never let her down. "I think it's time for some breakfast, girl," said Martin, with a snap of his fingers. Pulled from her distracting thoughts, Laura nodded and went off to the kitchen to prepare the perfect meal. "I think she's ready, darling," said Diana to Martin. "Absolutely," he replied. "She has served us well, and will only continue to do so as long as we nurture her servitude and treat her as she deserves." The smell of breakfast filled the air as they ambled downstairs to greet their faithful slave. Chapter 2. On the menu that morning was an order of massive stacks of cinnamon sugar pancakes and cream cheese stuffed French toast. Laura thought back to a time when she had diligently trained for a local marathon, and how she would carb load prior to her runs. She figured that the day and evening ahead of her would be something of a marathon for all members of the house, and, as such, she had decided to whip up the delicious meal that awaited Martin and Diana. The added sweetness was just for pleasure, though. She set down a bowl of crème fraîche next to the French toast and closed her eyes, wishing she could just cover everything with sprinkles and powdered sugar. She could not have felt more excitement than the proverbial kid in a candy store, and anticipated an adrenaline rush that might just rival the sugar rush she had set up for herself and her family. It was all she could do to attempt to contain herself, as she wished she could run around the house and scream to the heavens of her love and obedience and intended use. "This looks wonderful," said Diana, sitting down at the table. She stirred the spoon around in the bowl of whipped cream and looked down at Laura, who sat in a cross-legged pose in the corner, eagerly awaiting the approval of her master and mistress. Laura watched as Diana tenderly placed dollops of cream onto her plate of battered breads and imagined the sensation that she might feel were that cream to be placed somewhere on her body and then licked off. Luckily, Laura caught herself before she began to pinch her nipples and get too lost in fantasy. The pair ate breakfast as their slave watched and licked her lips. She was keen on trying the cinnamon pancakes she had so lovingly crafted on the griddle, a new recipe that she was saving for a special occasion.